You're watching Fearless Business on Uba TV, and we're here with Alan Brody. He's one of the pioneers in breakfast networking in New York City. He's been running iBreakfast for over 15 years, and he's noticed several business trends over the years. Alan, what's this accidental entrepreneur concept, and tell us more.
Well, let's just say that the 4-hour work week, which you love so much,
Right.
is no longer a voluntary 4-hour work week. It's a certain number of people have been stuck with 4 hours of work because that's all they're getting.
Because that's all they have.
And so for those people, they are facing a situation, especially if they're over 40. I think that's really where it kicks in. They may have had a great job. They may have reached the pinnacle of their career. And if they've lost that job, they're probably not going to recapture it, not anytime soon. And so those people are being forced...
Or not at the same level.
Not at the same level, no. I mean, McDonald's is hiring, of course, in some places. But for the most part, if they were a senior vice president of a specific area, they're not going to have that job, not at that level. So they're being forced to think entrepreneurially. And for many of those folks, it's a completely new phenomenon. So they may have a good severance. And say 10 years ago, they might have bought a franchise.
Right.
Today, they're forced to think really on their own.
So what are they doing? What are they buying with their severance packages?
Well, they're buying time.
If there is a severance package.
Look, they're buying time. But the main thing is that they were seeing a fundamental shift in the economy. So these jobs have been shifted. A lot of growth on the Wall Street is coming out of bottom line, meaning that the jobs have been sort of eradicated. So they're looking to, could they start a business? And that's a whole new shift for them because they've had a paycheck for years.
Right.
So to think about creating their own paycheck is a real shift in thinking.
So how should they position themselves?
So here's the deal. The most valuable thing that they have is their own expertise and their network of contacts.
Okay.
It's incredibly valuable. And
because over the years, if they're over 40, they should have a very large Rolodex.
So I'll cut to the chase.
Why don't you do it?
Okay.
Go ahead.
To be an entrepreneur today, okay, is very different from any other time in the world because the thing that used to be so expensive, which was the technology or the overhead or the infrastructure, is now incredibly cheap.
Okay.
Okay? So to give an example, a technology startup in 1999, on average needed about $1 million to $2 million in terms of technology development to launch.
Okay.
Today, you could launch the same technology for about $20,000 to $30,000.
And that's because of outsourcing and plugins? Is that the reason?
All of the above.
Okay.
Okay, so that means that relatively speaking, their experience and their contacts is now probably 10 times more valuable than the technology used to be.
Okay.
So
that's the gold.
So the goal is you have to tap your technology, go to your industry and say, what in my industry that I know ought to be automated or done in some more intelligent way? And if I can do that, I know how to hire the people to implement that. And I know, most important, who to sell it to, because I have a warm list of contacts.
You have a warm list of contacts. You have experience managing people. You know how to hire people.
Exactly.
So you've got the accidental entrepreneur. Now, you talked to me a little bit earlier off camera about a hidden hierarchy of entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
What does that mean?
That's the phenomenation.
Phenomenation.
Phenomenation, that's the plural. Okay, so the phenomenon of the entrepreneurial hierarchy is like this. Number one, whatever you know about entrepreneurs that you read about, the founder of PayPal went and raised $20 million, or Elon Musk, raised $100 million to launch the electric car. Forget about that, okay? Because those people are at the very pinnacle. They're the king of the realm. Those are serial entrepreneurs. They've done multiple times, mostly been successful. They can raise money just like this, and people are dying to give them money.
They
show up. They don't even have to pick up the phone rings for them.
Okay.
Okay,
so
that's not you.
Timothy Ferris would probably be one of those people.
Right. It's not him. Forget, whatever happens, whatever the rules are for him, it's like Jay-Z brings out a record, it's going to go to number one.
That's
but
right.
if you're J.E.,
J.E.,
you're not going anywhere, okay? So
that's great.
The number one thing you need to do is to understand what kind of business you're in. If it's a high-growth business, you do have a possibility of raising money, but money is expensive.
How do you know if it's high growth?
Because you have to ask yourself, is this something that with the infusion of cash can double every year for the next 5 years? That's a high-growth business, and that would be of interest to investors.
I would say so.
But it's cheaper if you can build it out of your own resources and your own network. It costs you nothing. So I'll put it this way. If you're an entrepreneur, you've got to ask yourself, if I took money and gave up equity versus somebody sponsored me and I give up no equity, what's a better deal? Now, your friends and your contacts are a form of sponsorship.
Right.
So whatever you get out of them, you really don't have to give up much equity. So that's cheap money. And you want to stick with that as much as you possibly can. And to take investor money, you have to be high growth. You should ideally be either of two classes. You should be under 30, in which case you're willing to work for nothing, give up your love life, and walk instead of taking subways. And you'll be investable, especially at these valuations today. Or you're a 30 to 45-year-old manager who has at least 10 years of domain expertise, and you really understand a segment of the industry. And if you can prove that there's a market there, then investors will be very happy to write you a check, because that's actually a very good bet. If you know.
So where do you find these investors, and where do they hang out?
Well, they don't hang out in bars. they hang out.
Why not?
Because they can afford yachts.
Oh.
So you look for wealthy people. You look for investor groups. You come to the iBreakfast.
Right.
And so I'll give you a tip. How do you know a real investor from some guy who just shows up looking
not sure.
wealthy? Okay. Here's the trick.
It's like the millionaire next door. You don't know.
No, you
You're going to tell me the secret
I'm
now.
going to tell you the secret. So here's the secret. Generally speaking, they're going to be a little older, which means they have a little bit of a middle-age spread.
Okay.
Okay. Not you're going to see it over here, but you know. So, so the trick is this. If they're wearing what looks like pretty decent average clothes, but you can see their shape,
okay,
then they're wealthy, because it means they paid a tailor to fix a jacket. And ordinary people don't bother to do that. And that's how you know they have money. And the next thing to do is to make sure that what you're doing is something that they're interested in. Because if you do what they're interested in, especially if it's something that helped them get rich when they were younger, you'll have their ear. And as long as you're young enough to make them feel that they can relive that experience, there's a good chance that on a personal level they'd be interested in if not investing in you, in taking your pitch. If an investor takes your pitch and they like you, even if they can't invest in you, it's in their interest to share that information with their colleagues, because that buys them points. So the trick is to have a story that they can retell their friends and say, hey, I got a great one for you. You'll like this guy. And if that ever happens to you, check's in the mail.
So it's a storytelling business.
Yeah. If you get a referral, check's in the mail.
So let's talk a little bit about iBreakfast.
That's so.
Sometimes investors show up at the iBreakfast.
They show up all the time.
Okay. And how does that structured?
Well, we have two kinds of events. We have informational events where we tap the latest trends. So we'll do, mobile marketing. We'll do search marketing. We'll do social media.
Right.
And so people will come who both have businesses that are trying to learn about this. They're trying to win over business because they're in that space, and so they want to attract customers. And we have investors who are there to either invest in up-and-coming companies or to catch trends and see who's hot. Because we attract people that are activated in that space. So it's a great way to network with people that are relevant. And then we have another series of events which are strictly about pitching. You have an idea, you got a business plan, we have a bunch of investors, and it's like a reality show. It's American Idol for investors. And generally has resulted in a lot of funding and also a lot of learning about what the business really ought to be about.
And also learning about what types of trends are happening in business today.
Yeah, I mean, look, you want to find out what investors are interested in.
Right.
Because if they're interested, good chance that you're going to find something.
Sure.
If they're not interested, you need to look elsewhere.
So when's the next iBreakfast?
So we have an investing event called the Film Funding and Marketing event on November 19th.
November 19th.
And then December 16th or thereabouts, we have one on alternate economies, game economies. In other words, money and value that you can earn out of Second Life and other kinds of games. It's become a secondary economy.
So for the viewers out there, if you want to find out more about iBreakfast, go to
iBreakfast.com, not IHOP.
Not IHOP.
iBreakfast.
You can go to IHOP and then go to iBreakfast.
Go for the pancake. You come to us for the information and the money.
All right. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.